Dash database looks to be very, very, very strong. So what does she do? She's still a mechanologist hero. She's an 18 life, 4 intellect hero. Once per turn, you may play a mechanologist item with cost 0 or 1 from the top of your deck as though it were an instant. It costs an additional 1 to play. Importantly, it's once per turn, so you can do this in your opponent's turn also. First thing I want to say about this card, I really just wish the name was Database Dash. It just rolls off the tongue better than Dash Database. I don't know. Am I the only one that thinks that? It feels weird saying Dash Database. This hero ability is incredibly powerful. You essentially get access to an extra card in your hand every turn if you have items on the top of your deck. The thing to note with that is the way that Mechanologist works with boosting and everything, you will very often get to look at multiple cards during a turn cycle. You get to look at the top card of your deck after you pass turn, and then every time you boost, you're getting to look at a new card. So if the top card of your deck is not an item, okay, boost it away. What's the next one? Is it an item? And you can keep doing that for as many boost cards as you have in your hand. And this does work with other card manipulation effects like Fate Foreseen or Sink Below or other draw effects or maybe a High Octane or something. So this synergizes very well with other card filtering effects. This really reminds me of Divining Top and the playstyles that could create. A little worried about that, but you know, Fab is a different game. It's probably not going to play the same way. We don't have like miracles and stuff, so there's none of those broken shenanigans that you can do. But Fab is a different game, so getting access to this extra card off the top of our deck is potentially one of the most powerful things you could be doing in the game. You're essentially drawing an extra card every turn, theoretically. And an additional nice thing too about playing these kind of cards like Fate Foreseen or other things potentially is with this hero ability, you're being able to see the top card of your deck. You know if it's a non-mech card on top if you're trying to boost. So you can plan your turn more around that of going, oh, I know I'm going to whiff if I try boosting here. So maybe I want to either use something in my hand that can fix the top of my deck, or I just don't go for a line where I'm trying to boost and I need to go again to go wide. I know I'm missing, so I'm not going to play towards that. So this does mean that you can theoretically include more non-mech cards into your deck without risking too much. Could potentially see Toma Fiendel going back up and playing the deck. That's kind of a card that's always seen playing the deck, kind of on and off. It's just a good card with all the action point generation you have. Now, that does come at a trade-off, though. We're starting the game at 4 less life, being a 36 health hero in Constructed, and we're giving up starting the game with an item in play that costs 2. That's a pretty big trade-off. In my mind, if we're playing the deck in the same style as a regular item dash, where we're trying to do this like mid-range pistol late game plan, for one, I'm not sure if I even want to do that with this deck. But if I was, I have to think, how many times do I have to get value off of this effect before it was worth me being this version of Dash over the original version of Dash? I'm thinking probably about 3 times because, you know, we got to make up for the 4 health. That's about a card. We got to make up for the item in play. That's about a card. It's probably more than a card because realistically, an item starting in play that costs 2, you're saving 2 resources and the full card to play it. We're going to have to do this a number of times. And the items we're putting into play with this are weaker in general than a 2-cost item. So maybe it's 4 times that we have to do this before it's really worth it. I don't know. It's kind of like Fugazi math, but that's kind of how I'm thinking about it initially if I wanted to play her in the exact same style as regular mid-range Dash. But I don't think that I necessarily even want to do that with her. There's probably new and interesting playstyles that we can explore with her that the other Dash couldn't. Now, obviously, we don't know the new cards in the set yet, and all of this is preliminary thoughts before we see any of that. So I'm just giving thoughts based off of what we already have. So first thing, what do we have access to with her hero ability? What kind of items can we put into play? We got the obvious good, Tech Low Core. This is probably one of the best things you can get off of this hero ability. You're spending 1 resource to get 4 resources. That's great. Now, the rest of these haven't really seen a ton of play, which makes this kind of hard to evaluate. One that kind of stuck out to me that could potentially be good is Absorption Dome. If we play this at the end of a turn where we boosted a couple times, we're converting 1 resource into multiple points of damage prevention. If you boosted 2 times, you're converting 1 resource into 2 health. That could be potentially powerful. And if you get a 3rd boost in, a 4th boost in, this card's very above rate then, and it's for free. I mean, free, you're spending 1 resource, and this has to be on top. If you draw this, you're kind of upset. But this is something that could potentially be powerful off this hero ability. Now, the rest of these don't really look too impressive to me other than Hyperdriver. This potentially opens up a playstyle that we explored as a community a long time ago, and it just didn't pan out to be good enough. And that's the Nitro Suit. Get in the mech. I have been wanting to cast this card for so long, and I think this might finally be the time. You might be able to have some sort of play style where you focus on trying to get this into play because you just like keep digging for your hyperdrivers, and then once you've got them in play, then you try turning the corner by playing your mech suit, and then either play some sort of mid-range plan from there where you just have a lot of value on the table, or you just OTK them. Now, this was something that we've had available to us this whole time. It just wasn't consistent enough. But something you can do is play a high octane and then boost multiple times in the combat chain and then attack with your Nitro Mechanoid multiple times. It does not say once per turn to attack with it. So if we play a high octane, for every time we boost, we're going to be able to swing our Nitro Mechanoid. We can attack with it theoretically up to 8 times in one turn if we draw 2 high octanes. I think a pretty reasonable thing you can do, though, is you have your action point, so that's 1 swing with a Nitro, and if you play a high octane and boost 3 times, that's a pretty normal round. You then get to swing with your Nitro Mechanoid 4 times in that turn. And it's like not that unreasonable to have a 4th boost in that round either. You drew a card off of the high octane, so then we're getting to swing with our Mechanoid an additional time. In a turn that we're boosting 4 times, that's 30 damage just off of the Nitro Mechanoid, since we're getting to attack with it 5 times for 6 damage each. Don't forget about the gauntlets, that's going to give it an additional +1 attack. Plus whatever damage you get off of your boost cards, but like realistically you're probably getting between 2 and 4 out of each of those boost cards. So you can end up with like a 40 plus damage turn, just oops, here's my Nitro Mechanoid, kill you. And if you have a game plan where you're patient and you wait, you can go really crazy where you set a high octane, wait for another one to come around, and then either pitch to do all this or go even further beyond and you have a Teklo core in play and just do all this for free. But that's pretty unnecessary. We don't need that many action points, as we can only swing the Nitro for as many materials are underneath it, which is 8. So with double high octane, we would only need to boost 4 times. If you're doing just that, where you're boosting 4 times with double high octane, you're presenting 47 damage with just the Nitro Mechanoid. Just that, 47 damage, plus whatever else you boost. Like, you can have a turn where you could just go crazy and present 60 damage and just like one-shot your opponent out of nowhere. So I think this is something worth exploring again with this hero. This is, I think, way more consistent with this hero ability being able to enact this game plan. Some other cards that potentially could see some more play now with this hero is something like Urgent Delivery. I think this card was like really hard to use in Dash as she looked before. If you're on the item plan, you're really not boosting that much to take advantage of this. And if you're boosting a lot, you probably don't have that many items in your deck to actually put into play with this. Where with this version of the deck, you only need to boost 1 time to put one of the items into play that you're trying to use this with. That's pretty reasonable, and you're probably playing a higher density of items in your deck now, so that in a boost strategy, so that way you can get the value off of your hero ability. And something else interesting to look at is we already have a few effects like this, but something to look at would be potentially us getting more effects like this of cards that do something from the top of our deck. Either we care about it having some intrinsic value on the top of our deck, or it does something when we boost it or something else. An example of that was Crankshaft, where we can put a counter on our Hyperdriver by boosting it. A nice thing with that is when we see it's there, we can now plan our round around that if it matters of, I know I'm getting this now, so I can kind of play differently. The only other card that really comes to mind like that is Back Alley Breakline, but this is just worse than playing a mech card. You get an action point back by boosting a mech card, so like why would I play this over a mech card? I'm looking to see if we get more effects like that in the set. That's something potentially powerful with this hero ability. And some other things that I'm potentially looking for in the set is obviously going to be some new items that we can play with her. When we see that, we can talk about that then and develop new game plans with those, but also potentially ways to use our resources on our opponent's round. Being able to play an item from the top of your deck on your opponent's turn is very powerful, but But if you're having to pitch a full card to do that, that's not as good as it really is. You really want to be getting that card more or less for free. So finding ways to use all of your resources on your opponent's turn is going to make that much more powerful. So like defense reactions or something like that, or like maybe instant speed loading steam counters or something like that. Just ways that I can go like pitch a blue, play the item on the top of my deck, use the rest of my resources to do something else. That way I'm not wasting this. Kind of like you would see with Oldhim using all their resources with like Crown, and then Shield, and then like Oasis or something, or Brothers in Arms. Just ways for you to use all this so you're not leaving value on the table. But yeah, Dash looks really powerful. What do you guys think? Let me know if there's any cool interactions that you guys have seen or thought of. I haven't done too much looking into it myself. This is just kind of me doing a quick look on February at all the mech cards and seeing what kind of interactions jump out at me. I'm pretty excited to play this. I'm looking forward to this. This might be something that I'm going to want to play. I do like control decks, so if this ends up being some sort of item control style, I'm going to be pretty intrigued. My biggest question though with this is, why does she get to start at 36 but not Prism? This is a much better hero ability. Sheesh! But as always, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. And if you want to see my thoughts on the BNR update, I have a video link over here. Check it out.